In the beautiful and chaotic city of Kumasi, a city known for its beautiful culture and its history of resilience, lived a man named Awuah. A seasoned journalist with a nose for the truth, Awuah had spent years uncovering the secrets that others dared not speak of. His reputation as a fearless investigator had earned him both respect and enemies. But in a city where power could be bought and sold, Awuah knew that the truth often came with a price. What Awuah didn't know as he walked through the crowded streets of Roman Hill one humid evening was that he was about to uncover a story so dark, so dangerous, that it would change his life forever. It all began with a phone call. Awuah was sitting at his desk, late at night, when his phone buzzed. The voice on the other end was shaky, scared. The caller, a young man named Issa, whispered that he had information about a powerful cult operating in Kumasi, a cult that wasn't just performing rituals, but harvesting organs and killing people. I don't know who else to turn to, Awuah. They're everywhere. The police, the chiefs, the politicians, they're all involved, but I know you can expose them. Issa whispered on the phone. Awuah felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about such things before, but they were always dismissed as hearsays, conspiracy theories, the stuff of late-night gossip. But Issa's voice held a truth that couldn't be ignored. Awuah agreed to meet him the next day, determined to get to the bottom of this. They met in a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of the city, a small town called Bomfa. Issa was nervous, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds, as if expecting someone to jump out of the shadows. He handed Awuah a folder, thick with documents and photographs. As Awuah flipped through them, his heart pounded. The evidence was undeniable. Names, locations, even pictures of people who had gone missing, their bodies found days later, mutilated beyond recognition. Issa explained that the cult, known as the Pillars of the Society, was led by some of the most powerful men in Kumasi. They hid behind their wealth and influence, using their connections to protect themselves. The cult preyed on the poor and vulnerable, promising them riches in exchange for their loyalty, but often, those who joined never returned. They lure people in with promises, but once you're inside, there's no way out. They kill anyone who tries to leave. I managed to escape, but they're looking for me. If they find out I'm talking to you, Issa said nervously. Awuah knew he was treading dangerous waters, but his sense of justice outweighed his fear. He assured Issa that he would protect him, and together, they began to gather more evidence. For weeks, Awuah dug deeper, risking everything to expose the truth. He met with informants in secret, followed leads that took him to the darkest corners of the city, and pieced together the terrifying puzzle of the pillars. What he discovered was worse than he could have imagined. The cult had been operating for years, hidden in plain sight, their crimes covered up by those in power. They trafficked in human organs, selling them to the highest bidder, and their ritual killings were designed to keep their members bound to the group through fear. Awuah knew that if he was going to take them down, he needed more than just evidence. He needed a way inside. That's when he made the most dangerous decision of his life. He would join the Pillars of the Society. Using a false identity, Awuah posed as a desperate man looking for wealth and power. It wasn't long before he was approached by a recruiter, a slick-talking man named Bafi, who promised him everything he had ever wanted. Awuah played along, attending their meetings, performing the rituals, and slowly gaining their trust. The deeper he went, the more he realized how dangerous the Pillars of the Society truly was. They were everywhere: businessmen, chiefs, politicians, even members of the police. They operated like a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part to keep the secret safe. But Awuah remained focused on his goal. He gathered names, recorded conversations, and documented every detail. He knew that once he had enough evidence, he could bring the whole operation crashing down. But being inside the cult took its toll. Awuah had to witness things that haunted him. Sacrifices, brutal beatings, killings of pregnant women, and the cold, calculating way they treated human life as a commodity. Every day, he feared that his cover would be blown, that he would end up as one of their victims. Yet he pressed on, knowing that he was the only one who could stop them. After months of careful planning, Awuah was ready to strike. He had enough evidence to expose the pillars to the world. He reached out to his contacts in the media, and a massive investigation was launched. The story broke, and the city of Kumasi was rocked by the revelations. The pillars of the society was exposed, their leaders arrested, and their network dismantled. Awuah became a hero, celebrated for his bravery and determination. The people of Kumasi praised him for bringing justice to the victims, for standing up to the powerful and corrupt. But while the city rejoiced, Awuah knew that his battle wasn't over. The pillars had been weakened, but they weren't completely destroyed. And there were still those who wanted revenge. One evening, as Awuah sat in his office, finishing up the last of his reports, his boss, Mr. Mensah, walked in. Mr. Mensah had always been supportive of Awuah's work, encouraging him to chase the big stories, no matter the danger. But that night, something was different. You did well, Awuah. You brought them down. But you've made some powerful enemies. Are you sure you're safe? Mr. Mensah asked calmly. Awuah smiled, confident in the protection he had arranged for himself. He believed that with the pillars exposed, he had nothing to fear. But as Mr. Mensah approached his desk, a cold realization began to settle in Awuah's mind. What are you trying to say, Mr. Mensah? Mr. Mensah's smile was thin, almost cruel. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver dagger, its blade gleaming under the fluorescent lights. You see, Awuah, not everyone wanted the pillars to fall. Some of us, well, we had different plans, said Mr. Mensah quietly. Awuah's heart raced as he realized the truth. Mr. Mensah was part of the pillars, one of the leaders who had managed to stay in the shadows. He had used Kumasi to eliminate his rivals, to clear the way for his own rise to power. And now that Awuah had served his purpose, he was no longer needed. Before all could react, Mr. Mensah lunged forward, the blade finding its mark. The pain was sharp, sudden, and all-consuming. Awuah staggered, clutching his chest as blood oozed from the wound. He collapsed to the floor, his vision fading as he watched Mr. Mensah calmly wipe the blade clean. You should have stayed out of this, Awuah. But don't worry, your story will live on, even if you don't, said Mr. Mensah coldly. As darkness closed in, Awuah's thoughts drifted to the people he had fought for, the lives he had saved. He had exposed the truth, but at a cost he hadn't anticipated. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the faint reflection of Mr. Mensah's cruel smile, a reminder that in Kumasi, even the bravest could fall to the shadows.